Impact Interview is sponsored by the Pocono Mountains, where small-town charm meets big adventures. Book your trip today by visiting PoconoMountains.com.
Well, our Impact Interview guest this week is a return guest, Emily Campagno of Fox News. She's a host. You'll see her on Outnumbered. You also hear her host the Fox True Crime podcast, and she appears on Gutfeld, a former criminal defense attorney and Oakland Raiders cheerleader. Just a huge big-time college football fan, and all of us just can't figure out why Emily keeps coming to talk to these three knuckleheads. But we're just so happy to have you back, Emily. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, you guys, thanks so much for having me back. I'm very grateful and surprised that you allow and invite back this Raiders and Husky fan. So thank you for that.
Well, you mentioned Huskies, and a year ago about this time, we talked about the possibility and USC, UCLA coming to the Big Ten. Little did any of us realize that Washington and Oregon would be sweeping themselves right into the Big Ten Conference as well. They got a game set up in Happy Valley next year, and then they're going to Washington. What are your thoughts on Washington joining the Big Ten?
Okay, so I come to the table sort of bearing two different flags, right? And I think that each of those flags represent how the community feel, which is really conflicted. And when we all talked last year, to be honest, I never thought it was an actual probability. I thought it was possible, but not probable. And even when USC defected, I still haven't gotten over my shock. And same with UCLA. So all of a sudden, to learn that UW and Oregon are leaving for the Big Ten, and that the sort of standard answer is, well, it's better for us financially. It's a better media deal, right? And so, for viewers, I'm sure they all know, but we get $30 million for the remainder of this media contract every year, raising by $1 million. And then in 2030, we get a full share of the over $1 billion expected, which is a massive amount of revenue. And it puts us in the limelight. It puts us on better featured. It puts us in better footing. According to the argument here, academically as well as athletically. But Washington is similar to Penn State, which is that it's an insular community, and it's one that is filled with pride of their own. And part of what we love about watching Husky football and Husky athletics is watching kids grow up in the state, rising through the ranks and shining throughout their youth careers, and then joining the Husky team. And so I think for a lot of people who are ride or die Washington, they're confused by the notion that all of a sudden the defensive argument for this, or the proactive argument, is, well, it puts us on a better national footing, where it puts us in the sort of better equipped to pull from the national pool, because the original position is, well, we didn't need to do that. We didn't need to be that. We didn't need to sort of be shoulder to shoulder with that. The whole point is that we were this positively insular community. So I see both ways. Traditions are important to UW, Apple Cup with Wazoo. And I think there's a lot of interest there as well in the community of like, all right, well, is Washington State then our homegrown option? Are we losing UW to some type of corporate media pull that we were supposed to rally against? Academically, UW is an amazing institution, obviously, especially in the realm of technology and medicine, so much more. So the argument that it somehow gets that finances to put it on an additional level, I also think falls a little flat, because many people felt we didn't need that. And it similar to, I can analogize with the Raiders going to Vegas, that it breaks my heart for the hometown. It breaks my heart for the Pac-12, or as I say to my ASU friends, the Pac-8. What happened to the Pacific Coast Conference that was supposed to be regional and geographical, that I love to watch? There's a lot of new blood in here. I'm not so resistant to change as I'm probably sounding, but I think there's going to be a lot of growing pains, and I'll be interested to find out how that schedule does affect our athletes, how the conference does affect people's allegiance. And I'll just close by saying that, the coach said, look, I implore all of you guys, don't be casual fans, Huskies. Come out strong, come out and represent. But maybe that's going to be a little hard if you're telling all of these Seattleites to start flying around the country and representing deep purple. We know I'll be at that game next year, but I don't know if you can convince the rest of the Husky community to do that. So I think a lot of questions will be answered as we actually join that conference.
Well, Emily, we call it the Impact Interview, and I wanted to ask you about some of the charitable causes in your life. You've been involved in the causes helping veterans, law enforcement, canines. How much is that part of your life really of impacting others mean to you?
Thank you for that question. It means everything to me. And the way that I view it is that I have been so fortunate to have the small platform that I do, or hold a tiny portion of a very large platform, I should say. And so to me, I feel like as a steward of other people's time and attention, um, how could I not use it to benefit others and to amplify the messengers that are doing amazing works out there to help fill needs for those communities like veterans and law enforcement and canines. I mean, the reason that I work, for example, so diligently to try to spread awareness for canine nonprofits is because there's no legislation that covers their veterinary bills after retirement. Most people don't know that. My goal would be to have these charities become obsolete. But until that time, I will do all I can to help fill the needs that these communities are championing for. And I think more accurately serve as a messenger for the nonprofits that dedicate their time day in and day out, those that serve in uniform and out, that serve the community. So for me, I consider it an honor to do that. And I couldn't think of not doing that given the platform that I have.
Emily, Tom Bradley, on Saturday, your Huskies take on Oregon, both now in the Big Ten. Can you tell me how much animosity are between those two schools now?
I mean, there's so much. And I'll say this, it's sort of interesting. And I feel that you guys can appreciate this as longtime fans too. Depending on your age, it sort of underscores who you think your actual rival is. So certain age groups, Oregon is the ultimate rival of UW. And to other age groups, actually like my years, it would be Wazoo. And it's in part because those represent the chapters when each school had a more commensurate playing field, right? So we've had our ups and downs, certainly UW. Oregon has risen to such a powerhouse, but so is UW at this moment. So I'm really proud of us. So I think this game will mean more because it'll be a better matchup. But definitely, if you talk to any Seattleite, you say, who's your biggest rival? Or any Husky, you say, who's your biggest rival? And if they answer with either Oregon or Wazoo, that'll sort of tell you what age that they came up from within the community. But those are my favorite games. And I also have to say, back to that first question that we touched on, I am grateful, weirdly, that Oregon's coming too. It's a familiar enemy within the Big Ten, but it's also it's a familiar school. So I hope that shoulder to shoulder, we can rep the Pac-12 well. And also that when we play each other in the conference, that those games will always be worthy of national attention for our caliber.
I like that you don't even call Washington State. You just refer to them as Wazoo. Like you don't give them the respect to say the whole name. I like that kind of part of it. It's a cool nickname anyway. But look, my needle is stuck. I'm going to take you back to the Washington Penn State deal because if you can make it next year, great. Jay's got you connected, sideline passes, tickets, whatever. We'll get you what you need. But I'm interested in that 2026 game, Emily, in Seattle. Penn State fans travel really well. What would they expect from a trip out west to face the Huskies?
Okay, first of all, I love that you picked up on me saying Wazoo because Cougars hate that. Hate it. It's WSU
Figured they did.
or it's Washington State. So I do it purposely to needle them. You're absolutely right. And here's what you can expect. And this is coming from someone, I've also had the pleasure of road tripping around the whole country, and I've gone to a ton of different conference games. And I am so grateful to those communities that are welcoming and super, appreciative to have fans from the other side in town and not being jerks about it. So I promise you that Husky fans are totally friendly. Like I used to say with my dog, she's totally friendly about a big Doberman. People were like, are you sure? It is true that there's a Seattle freeze. So it is true that, the warmth and exuberance you see from me is coming from the fact that I'm from California. I'm actually not from Seattle, but they are not the kind of fans that Oregon is. I'm going to call them out right now because you can have some more animosity from Oregon. Seattleites and Huskies, you definitely don't. What you can also expect is an incredible football experience, unlike any other stadium. We sailgate. The stadium looks like a sort of, I don't know what shape this is, but it looks like this, and it's right on the water. It is stunning. So you're going to be literally looking at like seagulls and osprey and amazing things right on the water. You can sail up. We have huge parking lots. The tailgating is amazing. And then the stadium itself has just great unadulterated views. It's really awesome, super unobstructed. If it's raining, that game will suck. However, I think you guys are okay coming from the East Coast because you're used to snow. So you can handle it just as much as we can. So it's going to be an awesome game. I agree. I was telling you guys before we even started filming here that I'm more excited for that game. I'm more excited to host you guys than I am to be a valued guest at your game next year, which I'm really excited for.
Well, as you look at the future of the NCAA, and by the way, I keep catching that you're saying UW. I had cousins from Alaska who went. All their friends went to UW, and I'm like, what is UW? Well, I know what it is. So more and more, the NCAA is in court with judges and lawyers deciding the future of college athletics. At the same time, there's others that are hoping that federal legislation will set the future course. As someone who is an attorney and covers politics, how much trouble are we in if we're relying on lawyers and legislators to decide the future of college sports?
Well, I think you guys, if you've seen 1 minute of me on air, you know how I feel about regulation and leaving it into the hands of regulatory bodies and the government. So we'd be in a lot of trouble. I think that's sort of a collective argument people have with the way that sports is going now. And that dovetails in with, again, our conversation about the conferences attracting different schools and shifting, which is that are we simply creating these super conferences? Are we creating essentially like divisions, but with conferences? Who does that benefit? You know, at the end of the day, where does the money go? Who is it benefiting? And when we rely on regulation, you know, the more you write, the more wiggle room will sort of be construed by those experts. It's just like the tax code, right? The more rules you have, the more people will wiggle out of them. So I think at its heart, we have to look back and say, how are the athletes being benefited? How's the academic community being benefited? How are the fans being benefited? You know, a lot of these alumni are being priced out. And have been for quite some time. And that's a robust argument for the changing of the landscape when people can't even get tickets anymore, or people have no idea why all of a sudden their annual ticket is skyrocketed. You know, where did that money go? Was it actually impacting the fan experience? Do we need a balsamic vinaigrette arugula salad in the stadium, right? Do these athletes, are they also on the flip side getting the compensation that they deserve, arguably, that their labor is creating? So, you know, if there's a lot of income being generated, and here there are massive amounts of income and profit being generated, then I think it's a worthy question to say, where is it going and how do we feel about where it's going? But I think it's incumbent upon these schools to keep that prize in their sights, is what's the fan experience like and how are the athletes being treated? And at the end of the day, are these athletes and are these fans being served in the best way possible?
Emily, you have a lot of interest away from your job, and one of those is with cars. How did that get started, and how long have you been doing that for?
Well, I think it started, you know, my dad loves cars. So growing up, we would go to car shows together, and he always had really cool cars, but his interest was sort of more in the European realm. And so I love muscle cars on my own. And I remember asking my parents, like, I wanted to have a 72 Mach 1 when I turned 16. And they were like, no, you're getting a Volvo. Like, you know, it's all about safety. And I was like, dang it. So I, you know, since as long as I can remember, I've loved stuff like that. I really have. And I've always loved all the stuff you guys see me passionate about and loving and supporting. I've always been that way. I've been riding horses since I was 3. I've been dancing since I was 3. And I had a 72 Mach 1 as my screensaver in law school. So it was totally like a vision board where in my final year of law school, I finally located one that I could afford, and it was in California. So I didn't have to deal with salt, and I got it, and it was fantastic. So I've had this particular 72 Mach 1 since 2005, that would be, but I brought it through a couple iterations. I had the original 351 Cleveland engine in it, and I put in a 408. And now there's a Coyote Illuminator, thanks to the incredible team at Innovation Performance, who are all combat veterans, combat veteran owned and operated shop. And they worked closely with Richard Petty that custom fabbed the car. So the car now is like my absolute dream. And part of what I love about it as well is not only the driving experience, which I absolutely love. And yes, it's a manual, it's a 6-speed, but that, you know, that's a vehicle, no pun intended, for, again, all of these nonprofits that I care deeply about, all of these causes that I care deeply about. So I love being a part of car shows and power tours and any type of events that, through the auspices of our shared mutual love of cars, mostly for me, American Muscle, is somehow highlighting a need in the community for law enforcement or veterans or canines or anything that benefits others, and makes them happier and fills needs. So to me, it's all positive. And yeah, I look forward to driving all the time. And in fact, you guys, in December, I'll maybe you guys can help share this information, but I'll be at a car show with Pennsylvania State Police, and it's benefiting their community, and we're having toy drive and all that stuff, and the Troopers United Foundation, which is your charitable arm for your law enforcement in your state there. They'll be there. So that's in Harrisburg. I want to say the first weekend in December. I'll be there with my car, and there'll be a ton of law enforcement, not giving tickets as we do our burnout, and a lot of fun cars, Lamborghini, Super Performance, all that stuff. So stay tuned for that too.
Oh, that's really cool. And we give you a platform to show off that car knowledge, and you just took it. That was fantastic. Be careful. The turnpike, some people think, is the Autobahn. So if you're coming out here, just be careful. So look, Emily, thanks so much. We'd be greedy if we asked you another question and took more of your time. We really appreciate you talking with us. And here comes Washington, Oregon, USC, UCLA. Things have really changed on the college sports landscape with football.
Thanks, you guys, so much for having me. I'm so grateful, and I cannot wait to host all three of you guys and your whole community in Seattle in that 2026 game. It's going to be awesome, and I'll see you next year for sure on the sidelines.